Why do people cheat on each other, risk their families and their own lives? In this episode, we'll explore the process of facing the reality of a spouse's infidelity. Will one emerge victorious from this situation, or will they fall victim to their cheating partner? Our story begins with Leon, who uncovers a secret that shakes the foundations of his marriage. When he witnesses an intimate moment between his wife, Maria, and another man, Leon's world collapses. This painful discovery leads Maria to abandon their family and follow her newfound love. Before we dive into our story, don't forget to subscribe and like this video to not miss out on the most striking stories about cheating in marriage.
Now, let's continue our story with Jim and me returning home from the factory. As always, our routine commute by car after work, with me taking the wheel this week. As we left the factory, Jim mentioned we needed to pick up some medicine for his wife from the pharmacy. Coincidentally, this led us past the pharmacy where my wife, Maria, worked. Inspired by the moment, I decided to surprise both Jim and Maria with a visit. I had never had the chance to visit her workplace throughout her years at the company. Naturally, I expected my sudden appearance would surprise her, creating a pleasant surprise for all of us. Visiting Maria at work had always been a delicate issue for me because I didn't want to leave the wrong impression with her co-workers or superiors. Surprisingly, Maria had never asked me to visit her during work hours or expressed any desire for it. However, today was different. Since Maria was on duty, I was confident my unexpected appearance would surprise her and indeed be a pleasant one. Maria worked at the pharmacy 2 days a week, and I had never visited her workplace in 6 years. Our 9 years of marriage had been quite comfortable. Although we weren't rich, my steady income from the factory provided us with a good life. 2 years into our marriage, Maria expressed a desire to go out, be independent, and own her car. Eventually, I was persuaded to support her decision, especially since her earnings would contribute to the purchase of the desired car, and she got a job at a pharmacy on the other side of town a week later. A year passed, and Maria proudly gave birth to our daughter, Alice. After Alice was born, Maria decided to stay home for a while and focus on our child. As Alice grew older, Maria again expressed a desire to return to work, even if it was just a couple of days a week. She had already contacted her previous employer, Mr. Clarkson, at the pharmacy, and he had agreed to take her back part-time. After much thought, I agreed, and Maria arranged for her mother to look after Alice on the days she would be working. When Jim and I arrived at the pharmacy in the car, we entered. The pharmacy was small but had everything needed. While waiting for the prescription, we were surprised not to see Maria. Only a middle-aged man was there. The man took Jim's prescription and began to fill it. I was about to ask where Maria was, but hesitated since Jim was standing next to me, and I preferred to remain silent. Meanwhile, the pharmacist was focused on his work. Seizing the opportunity, I walked towards the back of the pharmacy and noticed a photograph of a girl, about 7 to 8 years old, hanging on the wall, strikingly resembling my daughter, Alice. This similarity deeply unsettled me. I hesitantly asked the pharmacist who the child in the picture was, and he said, "No, I have 2 sons at home. That's Mr. Clarkson's daughter, Katie." These words echoed in my head, and looking at the photograph again, I saw how strikingly similar Katie was to Alice. Katie, with her golden curls and blue eyes, was the spitting image of Alice. I was stunned by this extraordinary similarity. For a moment, I thought Katie looked like Alice's future self. With this realization, still immersed in counting pills, I asked the pharmacist if the child in the picture was his daughter. The pharmacist's response, "No, I only have 2 boys at home. That's Mr. Clarkson's daughter, Katie," confused me further. As I looked back at the photograph, thinking Katie indeed was a sweet child, I also wondered about the reason for this resemblance and Maria's involvement in this situation. With this confusion, I stepped towards the back of the pharmacy and began to examine the products displayed on the shelves. During this time, numerous questions about where Maria could be accumulated in my mind. A sense of discomfort crept up my back. Was Alice really my daughter, or was she Mr. Clarkson's? Wrestling with these questions, I remembered the playful banter between Maria and me at home. The light-hearted jabs from my friends about ordering pizza too often, or joking about the mailman's hair color. But now, these innocent jokes took on a dark shadow under the weight of my gnawing doubts. Maria's strange behaviors at home, her rush to shower every time she returned from work, claiming she needed to wash off the persistent smell of chemicals she encountered. All these began to look like signs of her infidelity. On Friday, when Maria didn't have to work, I decided to confront Mr. Clarkson at the pharmacy. But that day, he wasn't there, and his assistant, Mr. Mann, told me Maria was also absent. Mr. Mann's comment that Mr. Clarkson was always absent on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the very days Maria worked, puzzled me even more. This situation plunged me into deep thought. Was Maria with Mr. Clarkson? As I sought answers to these questions, the crack in our relationship and the quest to discover Alice's real father became even more profound. When Maria returned home, her anxious looks and the change in her behavior increased my suspicions. I didn't mention my visit to her workplace or the doubts plaguing me, but I could feel something changing in our relationship. In Maria's absence, the atmosphere at home became increasingly suffocating. One evening, after putting Alice to bed early, I decided it was time for a serious conversation with Maria. Sitting quietly in the living room, I said, "Maria, the distance between us is growing every day. We need to talk." Maria looked at me with fear in her eyes. "What are your thoughts on our relationship and feelings for each other?" I asked. Maria began, "I love you, Leon, but—" and then hesitated, unable to complete her sentence. This hesitation fanned the flames of my doubts even further. The next day, when Maria didn't go to work, I resolved to visit Mr. Clarkson's pharmacy. Perhaps there, I could find a clue that would help me navigate through this turmoil. Upon my arrival, Mr. Clarkson was nowhere to be found, but I spoke with his assistant, Mr. Mann. During our conversation, I learned that Mr. Clarkson was usually not present on the days Maria worked. This information added more question marks in my mind. As I returned home that evening, I pondered deeply about the future of my relationship with Maria. While I questioned our bond, I also worried about Alice's true paternity. Our conversation that evening shifted the intimacy between us to estrangement. Despite the unanswered questions in my mind, my love for Alice never wavered. I couldn't give up feeling she was my daughter. A few days later, over breakfast with Maria, I asked, "Maria, where is this distance between us leading?" She only bowed her head and said, "I don't know, Leon. My mind is very confused too." That evening, I planned a surprise visit to Maria's workplace, hoping to observe and possibly find answers to my suspicions. Upon reaching the pharmacy, I found Maria absent, but I encountered Mr. Clarkson. During our brief conversation, I attempted to understand the nature of the relationship between Maria and Mr. Clarkson, but he gave evasive answers. Determined to lift the veil of mystery, I resolved to gather more evidence to uncover Maria and Mr. Clarkson's relationship, learn the truth about Alice's real father, and make the best decision for my family's future. This marked the beginning of a journey that would affect not only me and Maria, but also our daughter, Alice.
Our story continues to narrate the challenges faced by a family, the destruction caused by infidelity, and the subsequent process of rebuilding. During this time, Leon faces emotional struggles, changes in family dynamics, and internal conflicts deepen. As Leon tries to comprehend the true extent of the relationship between Maria and Mr. Clarkson, he starts to feel like a detective. Each clue he finds leads him into greater uncertainty. However, Leon's greatest concern remains Alice's happiness. One evening, while sitting in a cafe where Maria and Mr. Clarkson frequently met, Leon witnesses the two coming together. This serves as definite proof for him. Heartbroken, he returns home to delve into deep thoughts about how to address the situation. The following days are exceedingly difficult for Leon. He struggles to find a way to mend the fracture in his relationship with Maria while contemplating how his love for Alice affects this process. Alice, oblivious to all these developments, finds solace in her father's love. Finally, a long and emotional conversation takes place between Leon and Maria. Maria confesses her affair and expresses her remorse. Leon, thinking about what's best for their daughter Alice, contemplates the path forward. During this process, Leon decides to act in the best interest of Alice's future, putting aside his own anger and disappointment. He suggests couples therapy to Maria as a way to turn a new page in their relationship and provide a healthy family environment for Alice. Maria agrees to this proposition, and they decide to start anew. As days turn into months, Leon and Maria make significant progress in couples therapy, lighting a new hope in their relationship. The therapy sessions allow them to understand each other better and express their feelings of anger and disappointment in a healthy manner. This process gradually restores their trust in one another. However, the journey is not without its challenges. Leon struggles with overcoming Maria's betrayal, feeling significant anger and disappointment at times. He seeks ways to cope with these feelings and learns to transform them into forgiveness and acceptance through working with their therapists. Maria, on her part, rediscovers her love for Leon and is determined to make amends for her actions. Alice senses the changes within her family, but seeing her parents working towards reconciliation brings her immense joy and peace. Leon and Maria realize the importance of providing Alice with a loving and healthy family environment and work together towards this goal. Months later, Leon and Maria feel a considerable improvement in their relationship. One day they take a family walk along the beach. With the soothing sounds of the sea in the background, Leon holds Maria's hand and says, "I never thought we could overcome these challenges together. Being able to start anew with you and Alice is the greatest gift in my life." Maria, with tears in her eyes, responds, "Your forgiveness and love mean everything to me. I promise never to let you down again." This moment marks a turning point for them. They leave the shadows of the past behind, rebuilding their love and trust for each other. Alice, for her part, is the happiest child, having her parents together. Years pass, and Leon, Maria, and Alice create many more happy memories together. The betrayal and the events that followed become a story of the past for them. This challenging period teaches them the true meaning of forgiveness, love, and being a family. Every day they spend together strengthens their family bonds and makes them more resilient to life's challenges. This episode of Echoes of Stories series concludes with a hopeful message about the power of family, love, and forgiveness. The story of Leon, Maria, and Alice reminds everyone that it's possible to learn from mistakes and that second chances are achievable. Together, they demonstrate that love, understanding, and working together can overcome any obstacle.